Greetings, hello, and welcome to Deadhaus Whispers, the Deadhaus Sonata not really, official podcast. And today I am joined by the ever knowledgeable Golden Xan.
Salutations, everyone.
And the one and only, still checking his credentials, Doctor himself, RX Bishop MD.
Hello.
And we just put our plugs here. Don't forget, for anyone that doesn't know, Deadhaus is an upcoming grimdark horror setting, not horror game, but a horror setting ARPG that's free to play from Apocalypse Studios. The spiritual successor to the Legacy of Kain series, specifically Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. Just to throw that out there, so you can check it out at deadhaussonata.com. And you can follow myself at Twitter at the Faceless Mike. Follow Deadhaus the Game, and don't forget to go drop a follow to Mr. Golden Xan at Golden_Xan on Twitter, and you can follow RX Bishop MD pretty much everywhere. Bishop, isn't it?
Pretty much.
I've got your Twitch link. Your Twitch link on screen is twitch.tv/RX_Bishop_MD, but it's RX Bishop MD pretty much across all your social media.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay, so today we will be beginning by starting with what was on the most recent stream for Deadhaus Sonata, which is, drumroll please, tarot cards.
Man, those amazing.
So for anyone that's watching, the first one that was revealed was a card called Dance Macabre, which will be a vampire-specific class card. And it's basically that awesome move that you might have seen in previous demo prototype footage, where the vampire literally bounces from one character to the other, like just wrecking everything. And yeah, I really love the art style they've gone with. Those Vert Paint guys, they've really outdone themselves on this.
Yeah,
What do you think? So you got to watch as well, Bishop Xan. I know you've been very busy with the World Anvil, but I know for a fact you've seen this already. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not very knowledgeable about art, but I know the Dance Macabre has something to do with some old roots with history, an artistic movement, and I think this card is trying to go back to that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. I think the whole roots is the whole dance with death thing, which is basically the cycle of life is always the dance with death. And let's see here. I'm fairly certain if I have these right. I even have the two original concepts,
and they're both are great. They're both great.
I like the style that, like, I said it on the other stream as well. Hello, Wyvern Timmer. Said it on the other stream that I like the fact of the way the you can't tell if it's a vampire or not. It looks like it could be a Reaper, but it's clearly meant to be a vampire. But it's very non-distinct.
Yeah, I think if you showed like the image to somebody and said, "What is this creature?" you're probably going to get all kinds of different answers. But we're prefaced with, "Hey, this is a vampire ability, therefore we're like, oh, that's clearly a vampire."
Wyvern Tamer there, I think that B could work for something that doesn't imply movement into the nave. Yeah, they're both great paintings. They're both great, like, works of art.
Yeah,
but the final one that was used, I definitely like that. I think it's more the contrast.
For a vampire, this guy is quite different from what we've seen. I mean, our main example here is Lord Zorin, and Lord Zorin is already quite different than most vampires we get to see. But this one, I don't know how to classify this thing. You can see a very dark rim. His eyes are quite back on the skull, but his head has like some non-attachments, protrusions on the sides there. Something a little bit like Vorador with his ears, but less so.
And I'm looking at it, it nearly looks more of like the anthropomorphic personification of death rather than like it's just a vampire.
Yeah.
And what's super cool, it looks like he's like floating down in like into her for lack of a better phrase, but rather than, I don't know, almost like from mist. Like you think vampires, you think mist form. in a sense, like coming out of mist.
There's one Safi there. I love that both imagery display the victim surrendering and in awe. It's almost like they're seduced into death.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to now. You see, here's where we get into mild spoiler territory. I've gotten a look at what might be coming next, but then again, everything is always open to interpretation. I love this style. This is the style going forward. There will be variations. Apparently, I've been told by the guys that work in the art department, like there will be variations, mild variations based on class. So you could probably expect, for example, Wraith being the more floaty, essential, magical tint to it, whereas the vampire one is very more visceral and dark. But the imagery and the style of imagery will always be the same, you know?
Do you think, like, in the case of the vampire, do you think every card that we get obviously may not necessarily have a vampire on it, but do you think every time we see a card with a vampire, it'll be a different looking vampire, or will they maybe keep the same?
No, I think
art?
they'll all be different. I don't think you're even going to see like a vampire as a character in most of them. I don't even think this is technically a vampire. I'm not too sure. The way I'm seeing it is they're trying to represent the action rather than the creatures. So, for example, a ghoul one for feeding, let's say, it mightn't necessarily be a ghoul eating. It'll be something being consumed. You know?
And I imagine the more unique cards are going to have some specific characters, the ones that few people are going to see, things like that. When they come to cosmetic stuff, then they're going to show up specific individuals. But before that, yeah, I think something more general.
Wyvern Tamer, yeah, the heightened contrast in A makes it so that the painting feels more active. It implies more movement with the hair as well, very much so.
Yeah.
And
I think
then B is bleaker, makes things slower.
I think of like comparing them side by side. If in B, if her hair was red, it could almost be like a before and after take. If the sword was the same or something like that, be pretty cool.
Just pulling this up now, I'm going to get the more highlighted version. So if we get this, because this is what Scara here is talking about. With the light on it, I know many people said it make no sense, but here's the thing. It could be moonlight gleam. That's exactly what it's meant to be. It's meant to be like that, like the action. So if it was entirely in shadow, it would mean nothing. But that's what I gather to be moonlight. I just love the detail on the character. It's like, how do I get that mask? I need that mask, man.
I think the reference about the light was about the red on his face.
Yeah, the reflection.
It's implied. Obviously, we can say, well, maybe it's off the sword, or maybe it's from blood, or something like that. But it was more of a here's a thing to make it pop more. You can
clearly see it like along here, like the like if this is the color of the character, and you see here it's darkened obviously by shadow, and then the red reflection is the light bouncing off what we're assuming to be blood. You know?
Yeah.
Looks like a rapier, but far too long to be one. Yeah, interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's got the
I didn't even realize. Is that the same?
It's got the hilt of a rapier, but it's not. I think they went with a different hilt for the final one, and then this is just like
that's
standard
not the same
sword.
That's not the same same sword in the previous picture.
Scar's saying there, reflection from the red hair, perhaps. No, because the hair is behind there. If you look at what's facing the character, it's definitely that. As a Wyvern Tamer says, the red on his face is a highlighting trick artists use. As James said, it doesn't need to have an actual source. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But it's hinting at it, and it looks way more sinister.
What is that thing on her hand? It looks like some kind of glove that attaches to the fingers, or is that just...
I think that's part of her shawl. So it'd be like if she had one of those ones, but it comes around, let's say here, and attaches via, onto the one finger on the hand type
Looks
thing,
pretty.
and maybe around the thumb and all. It's just because you see here the way she's got like this dress type situation going on.
I like it.
Like overall, I love that. I want these. I want the real ones. Like, the hard, the physical hard versions, because they will be a fun collectible.
Dennis said, if you're going to do art for cards, make it amazing. And when they showed these, I'm like, this blew me away. I expected like fancy looking art, sure, but like fancy looking, kind of like gilded cards of some sort, just something, some kind of design and stuff like that. And then when we saw that, I don't even know.
Bishop expecting goth Yu-Gi-Oh.
Well, I mean, kind of, yeah. Like, I didn't expect this, and then to think, oh, well, there's other cards, and they're going to have similar art. Like, it just kind of racks your brain a little bit to think, what could it look like from here going out? Like, the bar is set way high, I think.
Well, from what I can gather with the whole team that's working on them, because it's not just like one person, there's a lot of work getting done here. Yeah, this is the standard. I think that was part of the tease of this, about like explaining the tarot system and then showing the cards, was to show, this is the standard. This is how we're going forward.
Mm-hmm. I'll be disappointed if we don't see some very gory images in some cards.
Oh, I'm sure we will, based on some of the fan art. It's going to be amazing. I do like where they're going looking forward. Now, I'm going to try pull up another one here, because myself and Xan were looking at some of the other artwork, and I have some of the stuff from Vertpage itself. So you might recognize this chap.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite. So I had a theory. I was looking down through some of this art, right? Yep. Some beautiful art. These guys have done, the team has done amazing work on it. But let's take a look here. All right. You're all familiar with this. You know who this is?
Lord Zorian.
Yep. Did you know, Bishop?
Yes.
I know you're still catching up with a lot of lore and stuff like that. I
was like, most of the main characters I
know.
It's like the odd kind of characters that I'm still getting familiar with.
I get tripped up on the obscure one, like the Gaztak's real name, or his human name, not real name. That's a bad word for it. Do you remember off the cuff, Xan? I know where to look for it, but
no.
You see,
I was trying to recall
we're
it.
all still learning, Bishop. There's a mountain of this stuff whenever we go through. Like when I read it in the Necro Libertas, I know who they're talking about.
Yeah.
But I get tripped up. I can never remember it. So here's my theory. This is the spiritual successor to Legacy of Kain. If Dennis got to make this the way it was, that's Kain. That's Kain a century later. Forget Soul Reaver, forget all the rest of it. If he got to go with the story the way he was wanting to go, that's Kain.
It's so hard to forget Soul Reaver.
Could be. Yeah.
Because the design of the character, the way he's starting to take on more Vorador-like looks, but he still has that attitude that Kain would have had. Especially the grandioseness. And I just love that armor set. I want that armor set. If I can't get that in game as a cosmetic, I'm going to be very disappointed.
I like the points in it very much, especially on the glove on the left. I imagine the left hand is mostly for melee attacks, and the right one, what does he do? He uses his magic or manipulates the sword. But I really like the spikes.
See, I would think it would be the other way around. The right hand would be for holding the sword, and the left hand, because having the armor on the left hand could be almost like a type of guard.
It could also be used if it's made out of particular metals or maybe things in them. It could be used to channel magic or essential stuff.
Plus, you don't normally see left-handed characters.
There we go. There's more up close.
Lucian
You
Army.
see, what got me there is the hair, the long, white, wispy hair. I was like, that's Kain. Now, maybe I'm looking into it too much. But that's how
It's very easy to do.
It gives him the impression that he's extremely old. Lucian Army was the name of Nagastak before he turned.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. Did you have to look that up, or did you remember?
I had to look it up.
I'd have to do the same. Now, we're going to be embarrassed by this like years down the line when we're doing a lot more Deadhaus stuff. But yeah, it's trying to remember everything. There's a lot.
There is a lot. Every time I look into something else,
write a lot.
You're saying, Bishop?
I was like, there is a lot. Every time I find something, I'm like, oh, this is cool. It just opens a whole new page of stuff that I'm like, wow. It just gets deeper and deeper.
Just like
yes,
in
it's
here,
true. And
what he has on his belt. Sorry, go on, Zan.
Right. No, this was one of the things I was going to ask you about. I opened up the stream on Wednesday for a little bit, and I noticed that the Baron's head was showing up as one of the trinkets that you'll be wearing on your body for something like that. And I saw a reference at some point to this image in the belt. What happened? What was that about?
So, to be fair, they didn't want to put it in this as spoiler, basically. But as you can see, there would be what would be a space in this area where Baron Eric's head would be hanging. He's attached there. So the idea being the Baron was killed by Zoran, and Zoran wanted to punish him. So he brought his head back to life and basically granted him a form of immortality that he can't die, and keeps him at a hand's length to torture him.
That's so rude.
By never letting him rest. And then he will be the one that whispers things to you and says things. So the cosmetic item will be constantly talking to you, anyone that's familiar with Too Human or such. And then that trope's been used a lot over the years in movies and stuff like that. Like Dennis quoted Hellboy as a prime example, where he goes into the crypt and he's trying to look for something, and he brings back one of the dead guys. And the dead guy's like giving out to him. I think it's in Russian or something. It's like, just let me rest.
There's quite a few video games that use it too.
Oh yeah, like God of War, I think recently used it in the exact same way that Dennis done with Mimir. Like doing that.
Other thing, what's that one? The one where you're a cheerleader and she has her boyfriend's head.
Yes, Lollipop Chainsaw.
Lollipop Chainsaw. There we go. Yeah.
So that's the idea behind it. But from what I can gather, he's tortured, but they don't want to go too dark with that one, because Baron Eric is kind of going to be the comic relief to juxtapose like the serious dark bits. So if Zoran was hiding somewhere, sneaking in, he'd be the one roaring, "He's over here! He's hiding! Run!"
Movie's so funny.
Kind of ruining it. Like, we're almost getting into Deadpool levels of comedy, but when you're getting something so serious, there always is that juxtaposition of having the comedy character, just seeing their head on a rope. It's Eric, yes, not Alaric, Eric. I had to clarify that to make sure, because I remember making assumptions back in the day, and I was wrong. There is no connection between Baron Eric and Alaric.
So Zorin carries his head in the story all the time with him, essentially? Or was this for just... So Zorin carries around the Baron's head all the time with him in the story, or
that's going to be the start of it, and then we don't know if there's some reason why. Maybe he gives it to you or whatnot, because it is a reward for the higher tiers. I think, is it Legacy Scholar or something?
I think so. Legacy and above. I did ask.
Yes, Legacy and above. You do get it as a cosmetic item.
He said there was kind of no crazy story explanation why all these people would have it, but
yeah,
that was something I was wondering.
Yeah, so that's the kind of the way they're going with that one.
But that doesn't mean there can't be.
And it's interesting that they revived the Baron. Well, Lord Zorin revived the Baron's head and not turned him immortal before cutting off his head. That's curious.
Maybe he did. I don't know the exact details of it, though.
I see.
There's Scara. Love Lollipop Chainsaw.
It was a really fun game.
I definitely think, I'm sorry, I'm still caught with the whole "this is Kane." That just came to me as a revelation. I thought they were going a different way, but I was like, Wyvern Tamer, alas, poor Eric. I knew him well. Well, not really.
I think you're right on that, Faces. I think Dennis has mentioned many times that if he were to continue working on Kane, it would be something akin to Lord Zorin. He really likes the character Zorin, even though he identifies very much with the Revenant, Nagaztek particularly, because of his search for truth and all that. Even though the Revenants are not so focused on that, but still.
Oh yeah, they're definitely the way it would have went, but like. Yeah, he could. Dennis clearly favors Nagaztak. Like that's because the founder of Deadhaus. He is Nagaztak. He founded Deadhaus. That's kind of the way on the story front. But like he did create Kane, so there's always that certain love.
It dives into a little bit of Soul Reaver because I don't remember Kane having a throne in Blood Omen, but every time I see that image of Nagaztek sitting on his throne, it immediately reminds me of Kane's throne in Soul Reaver.
At the end of the Blood Omen, there are two endings, right? That's no spoiler. And if you pick the bad ending, Kane sits on a throne in front of the pillars.
Okay,
I think
that's what I couldn't remember if he sat on a throne or if like the pillar just crumbled and stuff like that.
I think it crumbled, and then there was a hovering camera around him, and he was sitting on the throne drinking from a cup. Is that right, Faces?
Yes,
you must have played
it's Kane sitting on the crumbled pillars with the skeleton of the demon that took over the Necromancer Mortanius. And it's kind of like that rib cage thing with the skull on top. And he's sitting drinking from a chalice of blood. And he says, Vorador was right. We are gods, dark gods. And he gives this whole speech about, and it is our job to thin the herd, and gives this whole prophetic speech about it. Yeah, of course, I picked the bad ending.
I never noticed that thing about the rib cage. That's cool. I actually never thought of the demon's bones.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And then Dennis going spilling beans again. Did you during the stream that it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna have like Giga House and we're gonna have demon house and an angel house, and I'm like, okay. Didn't know anyone was allowed to say anything like that, but okay, we'll roll with that. Well, the demons are fairly obvious for at least an enemy anyway, because like there's that artwork. Although speaking of artwork, considering you both roll Team Lich, I felt it would be pertinent to jump over while we're talking about Dancing with Death and different styles of artwork. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, sure.
I remember seeing these. I haven't looked at them in a while since we saw the final. I forgot these existed.
These are the Lich ones. Scara, he mentioned angels once before. Yeah, Scara, but when he mentioned something in passing in an after party versus on a stream, this, I think it gives a lot more flavor to the way the Liches go. Because I know a lot of people coming into things new will have seen the official artwork and won't have seen like the iterations, the prototypes, and the different variations on things from different angles and all that the Verpaint guys are doing. Because this will give you an idea onto what way you'll be creating your classes. So considering you both roll Team Lich, go talk to me.
Well, you go first, Bishop.
I'm torn. Like, it is like kind of what you're saying. Like, we have the final artwork. We're like, cool. And these are perfect examples of the customization that we can probably expect. So you're going to see some hopefully wildly different things. And I like, out of all three, if I had to pick one, I think the first one is kind of like number 2 is kind of like overpowering, like how I'm the best. While number 1 is kind of like a sneaky, kind of a shady, kind of looking Lich, and I kind of like that.
What about you?
Honestly,
out of those three?
The Lich, even though I like its story very much, I like the fact that its entire being is about truth and magic and all these sorts of things. Visually, I think it is the one that has innovated the least in comparison to all the other classes. All the other classes are very different. Like the ghoul, you've never ever seen a ghoul like that. Most ghouls in games are just a person that looks a little bit dead and old and with elongated arms, like that.
Maybe just
on
fangs.
this one. Yeah, on Deadhaus, the goalie is absolutely amazing. It's one of my favorite freaking concepts.
Oh, we'll
the Lich,
we'll get to him in a minute, but keep going.
yeah, the Lich is a little bit more cliche. Not that this is wrong necessarily. I'm just saying that we have seen this in other in other stories.
Yeah.
Many people made connections with the Nazgul from the Lord of the Rings. Maybe they could be classified like Liches. I don't know.
A lot of
But
people will be familiar with them from like World of Warcraft or other like MMOs and fantasy games. You know, it's a very common character.
yeah,
A Lich.
Liches
And,
fall into a weird category. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue.
no, that's okay. That's okay. Um, I was hoping to see some more magical manifestations in his being, in his clothes, in the way he moves. I believe I mentioned even on Deadhaus Whispers before. I even picture one of my first liches in fan stories as not having even a head and just putting his phylactery in his place, just to give him a different feeling of a different kind of creature. Right? And I agree with Bishop. Number one here seems more sneaky. Number two, because of the camera perspective, looking from below, makes the Lich seems overpowering, stronger, taller. It's a different kind of feeling than I was expecting visually from it, but I like it still.
I just really like the style in which it's done. Like, I know some of the people were going on with the whole thing. Oh, it's very similar to like Lord of the Rings, but I only got that from one slight image, and that's one we'll see here.
And that's kind of where I was going to go. Like where you mentioned liches are these are less innovative. I was going to say they fall into a weird category. I think like if you go one way too far, you end up with a wraith, and if you go the other way too far, you end up with almost what the vampires are looking like. So, and you kind of just said it. I was going to ask you, I was like, how would you maybe change it, or what would you like to see? Or, but
yeah, that's why we're going to say
the
Nazgul are more wraith stuff. True. With these, I get the more sense of what Xan was saying with the magical sense, especially when we get the second one there with the book.
Yeah, once you start adding artifacts like that, it really, I think, changes the whole perspective.
I was thinking if you were to make this more magical, one of the first characters to look into would be the nameless lich in the Off Liches 1 that Alaric finds in the forest. Is basically described as a mummified corpse floating about, like a puppet being controlled by a puppeteer, and being held by strings, and its joints all dry and moving in weird angles, in weird ways, precisely because the lich isn't really living in his body. He's controlling it from afar. So I imagine things like that.
That would be cool to see, like an arm kind of like floating, suspended with like strands of magic holding it in.
Yeah, like that.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah, that's what I kept wondering. Do Lich walk, or do they just kind of float ethereally? Maybe there's different stages to being a Lich.
I don't see why it couldn't be both.
Transform into one, from like ascend, shall we call it, from their human form. Are they still like mostly human, just dead? And then over time they become less physical and more magic and essential, you know?
I think that's the case. The lore we have available makes it clear that the point in which a person becomes a lich is when their soul is transferred to a phylactery. So it's essentially when they make an essential transformation, right? But they have to do it through magic. So it's kind of weird. It blends together. And I imagine that depending on how you specialize your character will have different ways of moving and behaving. For example, if you are a lich more focused in physicality, you'll probably be moving more like a normal human. And if you are more magical, you'll be behaving something different, like that character from Off Liches 1.
I keep wondering, is the character from Of Liches similar to this one, or is this a completely separate guy altogether?
I would say if it is the same, it's in two different eras. right? So like this seems more of a dominating, powerful one, while the other one sounds much older or falling apart.
Yeah. I love the imagery that it shows here. So for anyone listening, it's a lich. You will need to look that up because with everything, Deadhaus has actually gone its own unique route. So like trying to describe it like the vampire, it looks like a vampire, but it's not a vampire from like most common stuff. The same would be for a ghoul, as Xan described. It is very much a bestial monster. Same with our lich here. If you imagine a necromancer that died a few centuries ago, fused into his armor, like some kind of twisted battle mage, standing, and the helm. You see, you can't even tell. Is that a helm or is that his head? You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, I love the imagery here where they use the souls of humans or living creatures to fuel their magic. And you've got the guy here and then his, like, literally his being drained from him.
I hadn't noticed that before. The face floating in front of him or her.
Oh no, that's clearly a him, but yeah. That's like the level of detail on it is beautiful.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Now we need to know, what is he singing from that book?
Ooh.
So that's what you're going to be rolling main, yeah?
Initially.
That's commitment, Xan.
They're all going to get
anyone else. We'll all be rolling all the classes. I'm not going to lie. I'm main vampire, but I will be rolling one of everything.
I think I'm definitely going to, as soon as the Lich is available, I feel like anything that comes before it, I'm just going to okay, I'm done. But it will ultimately come down to gameplay and what just feels good and is really fun. So who knows?
Wyvern Tamer. White. Yes. White being the other class, the weird biomechanical, although less mechanical, not really necro-mechanical? I don't know. How do we describe a white, Xan? You're the expert here.
Frankenstein's monster, probably.
Yeah.
Is an agglomeration of many.
Far more fair assessment.
Lord Skara, initially we don't know what's being released first. We expected, Dennis has mentioned this before, it might have changed, that the first 3 classes available in the first stage are going to be the Vampire, the Revenant, and the Lich.
And since then, I've heard only just one, being the Vampire.
We've got our ones here of, as you were mentioning, the Ghoul.
Yeah.
We've got our iterations here.
Ghoul is, I think, out of all of them, the Ghoul is the most terrifying.
Indeed, quite terrifying, and also one of the most innovative of them.
I like this one. Just something about that. And then there.
Jeez.
For anyone that was unsure.
I think this is the concept art that I have stared at the longest. I wonder what kind of skill allows them to transform organic material like that to be able to create this den that they live in.
I'm just wondering, is this like what happens when it eats everything and this is the remains? Like they're kind of sitting in their own trash. Because like if you notice, I don't know how many people looked up close, there's another ghoul here holding something. And then there's another one here in the background that looks like about to pounce out.
Oh, I never even noticed the other ghouls.
Because there's rarely ever just one. You might find one. Alaric just catches one, but that's not to say there was only one.
No, every time it says this is the concept art. This is the concept art. The only one that features more than one of the classes. Yes, it's true. Every other concept only shows one individual. In here we have 3, and it makes me wonder whether that means the ghoul is more of a pack hunter or more cooperative than other classes.
No, I could see that. I could see the ghoul being the Zerg Rush class.
Yeah.
They'll cause high damage, but they could be vulnerable's the wrong word. They would probably be the more easier killed class
Yeah.
solo, but if you had a few ghoul, I do think that they would be an unbelievable force to be reckoned with. Like, we joke the idea, the quickest way to deal with the city, you know, just get the revenants to launch a few ghouls over the walls and just let not so much nature but death take its course.
It would be cool to see like pack skills, right? So like if you're with another ghoul or two other ghouls, like some of your skills either get like a percentage boost or something based on how many ghouls you're with.
Yeah, like like synergy abilities or something.
Yeah. Like I would hope that would be the same across all the classes, but the ghouls specifically with other ghouls.
I do think that they will be going that route. And what we have here, if I share this one now, is the different iterations you've got for the faces.
Yeah.
There's some really good ones there. I do like this. It gives you a real idea as it says, oh, there's our armor boy.
One of the most interesting aspect to me of the ghouls is that they're all blind. They have this tissue in front of their eyes, or if their eyes show up, it is it seems to be blinded.
Yeah, their eyes are just physical in nature. They don't do anything. They
Some of them even put armor in front of it.
Yeah. I love the idea. Absolutely horrifying. Look at those teeth. There's multiple rows of teeth in there.
Like a shark.
Yeah, I'm just dying to see how these characters roll in game.
I think it's fascinating that some of the armor is like attached with just nails driven in.
Leg nails.
Like,
leg nails.
That's where it came from.
Like
the ultimate accessory.
It shows the like mentality of the ghoul, because a ghoul's not thinking. It's thinking, hey, I want to eat, but survival instinct says, hey, maybe I need to kind of protect myself, but I don't know how to do that. Here's a nail. Here's a piece of metal. Just stab it on.
But there must be some form of intelligence to the ghouls, considering they willingly are joining Deadhaus. So that's what I want to know. Where does their intellect go? Yeah, they are pure hunger made flesh, but like, to join Deadhaus, there must be something to them, right?
There has to be some sort of self-control, right? Or else they would just try to literally eat everything. Like, oh, don't eat them because they're on our team, so I'll go eat these people instead.
The idea of this ghoul sitting chewing on the side of a wall.
The intellect comes from the spirit, says Wyvern Tamer. Yes, I believe that's right. I mean, maybe more specifically, the merge between the spirit and whatever individual that was before, if they get to keep anything in the transformation process.
Well, that's the other one, right? They talked before about the Lich. This is the only class that make themselves, but not really. Don't the ghouls go through a ritual to become a ghoul? It has to commit some type of cannibalism, but I'm assuming there's some ritual or something involved there. It's not just base cannibalism.
Yeah, but the ritual is essentially the appearance of the spirit of hunger coming to the body and merging with it slowly. So it has a third party, an external being associated with the transformation, unlike the Lich.
Wyvern Tamer is saying if someone can communicate on the essential plane, then they can communicate with the ghoul. Ah, I see now. So in the physical realm, it means nothing. But on the essential, they would actually be able to communicate with it like it is something.
That's a good point.
That would be.
Jack said that any amount of cannibalism opens the door. Then the spirit initiates. Ah, that makes sense.
So would I've two thoughts. One, does that mean a ghoul is, if you're playing as a ghoul, it's very ravenous in the physical, but then is more intelligent in the essential, meaning maybe there's some sort of play there, different mechanics, which would be fascinating. And then the second thing is, if any kind of cannibalism opens the door, is and the spirit initiates the ritual to start the ghoul transformation, is that then based on the will of the person to consume as much possible?
As Dennis would say, both great questions.
Because they can obviously finish the ritual, meaning they satiated the spirit, or they can fail, basically dying.
I don't think they can. I think it's a case of when they commit cannibalism, as Wyvern Timber Point there, Jack said, any amount of cannibalism opens the door and the spirit initiates the ritual. I think once this other spirit initiates said ritual, there is no satiating the hunger. That is them then the ghoul.
Well, I mean, enough to complete the joining is what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think they can fight it off. I think it's like some kind of weird exorcism situation. It might be. I have no idea.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see a little bit, but the lore page for the ghoul says that if they fail to consume enough food, the spirit may just abandon the body, and then the person is going to be deformed and incapable of sustaining itself. So I imagine the person will die, depending on the level of transformation. I don't really know. I'm going to have to wait and see.
And that's where it shows some sort of will on the individual.
It might. Yeah, it might depend on his will, or it might just simply be, is there enough food for you to sustain yourself throughout the transformation? Because if there isn't, perhaps it could fail like that. And Wyvern Tamer is citing here that part. For the act of cannibalism is an invitation to a ravenous spirit that covets the flesh. But for those who partake of the flesh of their own kind, a door is open and a ritual begun. And there's more. Are you still typing it, Wyvern? Any cannibalism begins the ritual. Yeah, but that's the part. Initiation.
So I think it was also talked about like ghouls having two different sets of ghouls. Kind of like what you were saying, Faceless. You could have people that could just choose to become cannibals and potentially start that. And then others that are forced.
Yeah, and I wonder why someone would want to become such a horrible creature and go through that painful transformation.
That I don't know.
As a matter of fact, I wonder, do the ghouls even feel pain with their exposed flesh and like that?
I don't think they do in the way we consider pain. I believe they only feel pain in the sense of like hunger, longing, want.
Mm-hmm.
You get me?
Yeah.
And then moving swiftly along from our as a cult stand, the answer is cults. Oh, okay. Moving swiftly along to our next brethren.
I could see that ghouls being some sort of like god, like looking as them as God and some sort of ascension.
Yeah, that's a nice way to look at it.
This is like a slow transformation here from physical to complete.
I'm a big fan of the Wraith too.
That's my secret second class thing, I think. It's either between Revenant or Wraith, but I do like the kind of assassin powers like idea of the Wraith, especially with the Of Wraiths radio play. Speaking of which, anyone, you can check out on deadhaussonata.com. They have nearly, over the next 2 weeks, they will have all, but nearly every one of the radio plays up to listen to as podcasts that are available on Spotify and anywhere where you can download such things, as well as all of them, bar one, we're waiting on shortly, are also available on their YouTube channel. Now, Wraiths, tell me, thoughts?
This is my third class pick. For
Why? Why?
Well, whites are my second.
Yeah, but that's not why, though.
I mean, like, I'm staying away from vampires only because, except for initially, just because they seem like a common choice. Banshees, I don't know how I feel about yet. But they kind of, I know. But so liches are kind of like, I like the idea of the magic wielders and stuff like that. And the Wraith is just kind of like what I said a little bit ago. You push the liches one direction a little bit too far and Obviously not lore-wise, I don't mean it like that, but you go a little step farther and they're essentially wraiths. So they're kind of similar. That's why.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. For me, wraiths. Well, I always like to play in every game when available a rogue class or more assassin type character. And in the beginning, in Deadhaus, I thought the Banshee was going to be an assassin. Right now, we found out she's more supportive. She uses more magic and her voice more so than anything. The Wraith is more our assassin, and that's why I wanted to get to know the Wraith before they got to reveal. And they shown the Wraith, and I really liked him. And it seems that his main way of striking is by tethering people with his chains and things like that. And I'm not sure how that translates into assassination, but I'm curious to see it. And
don't think of the chains as physical. That's how it works into assassination. It's not like Hellraiser where like a chain just flies out and hits someone. It's more of hooking their soul from their body with a chain and dragging it away.
Yeah, I agree. And especially in the story we have of, I believe, in Off Wraiths 1, the Wraith that shows up connects the two guards and then just executes a single strike that hurt them both equally in the same way, all in the same spots, like 1,000 cuts, ripping off their skin at the same time. Or it seems so from the description. And I imagine this is what he will be doing mostly. He will be flying around the battlefield, making connections to people, creating these ethereal chains, and just pull them all together, ripping people's bodies. I don't know. That's kind of like it feels.
And if that's the way it does go, I'm going to love Wraith.
It's interesting, right? And it's different from what we usually imagine the archetype of a sneaky character going backstabbing people. And I want to check it out. I want to see what they've done with the assassin.
Funny lore story. That was the name of a metal band I was in many, many years ago. just to throw that in there, that little connection to Deadhaus.
And of the designs that you showed before, I think I like the fourth one, which had sight-like shoulder blades. This one that they went with has that pain halo behind him around his head. I like the fourth version the best, which they kind of combined.
Yeah, four, and I like 4 and 5, just because, like, even back in the day when I used to play like World of Warcraft and stuff like that, I liked the warlock look, that kind of theory, you know. There's a wyvern tamer. My theory, you put them through your transformative torture in a few seconds. Yep, that sounds about right. But yeah, I'm looking forward to them, although they'll be a little further down the line.
Yeah.
They'll definitely be one I'll be rolling, though. I'll be playing quite a bit of that. And while we're on the topic of which ones I'll be playing as well, I'm waiting for Wyvern Tamer to get all freaked out and excited here now.
Before I knew the Wraith was an assassin and I thought the Banshee was, I was making a thread on the forum imagining what kind of skills she would have that will resemble a rogue type character. I eventually ended up erasing it and started doing some research on the Banshee to see if I could find something that made a connection between the lore and the skills. And that's when I came up with the research for the Banshee. Okay,
and
the white.
Here's our white. We've got our few pictures there. There's our concept. Here's our final. We'll be coming to that in a minute. But the alt designs, these I found very interesting.
I actually like the altar designs more so than I like the final one.
This will be like very interesting with how this works, especially Slenderman here.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most fascinating ones to me. Like everything else kind of makes sense, but the Slender one is the one that I understand the idea and the concept, but it'd be cool to see it in actual practice.
And I really like the idea of mixing mechanical parts with the body of the white. That's why I liked one of the earlier designs the most.
I just keep seeing the Three Stooges here, Curly, Larry, and Moe. Now, is there only one head, or the other two vestigial? Is it solely for appearances, or is it just to keep an eye on everywhere?
The one in the middle definitely seems like it's the one in control.
Or are they all part of the one? Is it just like one mind because it's one thing, but then it can see out of all the eyes, and as it talks, it's talking out of all of them at the same time?
I would assume it's all one, yes, but the one in the middle definitely looks like it's the one in control.
I suspect the consciousness is not actually stored in one of the heads. I think it is stored inside that chamber.
Definitely in here, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that this actually was taped onto something before, and then you can see it's been torn out and installed in this physical body.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if there are more heads behind those, because they put 3 there. Why not more?
Yeah, like you said, your Lich can have no head, your White can have 4 or 5. There's no limit to it. But as you said, the example for the White now, this being a hulking abomination, very similar to Frankenstein's monster, only taken to the extreme, where the body is just an actual vessel. The thing itself is the embodiment of essence, and it is contained within, we don't want to call it a phylactery. What's the word that was used? Artifact?
Artifact, yeah.
Wyvern Tamer asks, am I the only one who doesn't mind the fact that they lost the mechanical? I think many people are quite satisfied with the way that the body of the White is currently. But I also believe that the way that it is customizable in the game is precisely by changing parts. And I think that for him to be the most versatile, they'll have to be able to attach things that other classes cannot have, which also means mechanical parts, like a gun, or cannon or something, flamethrower.
Yep, and whatever said, the consciousness is in the artifact. Yeah, my White in the lore is walking around with a destroyed head. Mm-hmm. And Cornson, White, flesh golem. Why not 6 arms and 4 legs? Better stability and more close range fighting power. Exactly.
And
although
I wonder,
we can't even count the legs there, to be honest.
Yeah, it
One,
looks
two,
like
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Don't know what these are. That's clearly arms, but God knows what those.
I know it's way too early. I know it's way too early, but I wonder if we went the mechanical route, like if there'd be a benefit to having mechanical legs versus flesh legs, or something like that.
They'd be very circumstantial. The differences on which would be more benefit. Oh, Wyvern Tamer there saying the Frankenstein's monster comparison keeps popping up, but isn't really a good one. Dropout Frankenstein tried to create life. The alchemists explicitly didn't. This is true, but this is just a way to explain it to normies that don't exactly know the way we're going along with this idea. Like Frankenstein was the story of a doctor putting together a construct and bringing it back to life. These were clearly never alive. This is manifesting and animating an abomination that probably shouldn't have existed.
Yeah.
Cobbled together from the minds of mad scientists, alchemists, and later on with the assistance of liches, most likely.
I think there's a solid comparison. They just have different beginning and end results. But the core concept is similar.
The idea behind it, yeah, the actions towards it and where we go with it is, I think, where the difference comes in. Now,
only drop out.
I have some stuff here that a lot of people may not have seen in quite a while.
That hornet head.
That's the one, right?
It's interesting
For
how
anyone not knowing, this is the Gaztak.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see the skull fused with the crown. I like that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Did anyone notice the two different crowns or the two different Deadhaus? Because the old one and the new one.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I haven't seen these images. These images I haven't seen.
This was Nagaztak, or how he was going to look. That's not too great.
I think the Revenant is also the one class that I'm really, I don't want to say not interested in, but I don't know. I don't have a strong.
It'll be slightly more than your average tank class.
Yeah.
Essentially, manifestation of pure rage. Darkened armor, burnt silver look.
They look like 3D.
Get the Malorum look, huh? I do like the design bit here, though, the way there's like the different iterations of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
the weapon.
Yes.
And the weapon has a story of its own.
It almost looks like that's a key slot somehow.
Yeah, it's true. Could it be the opening to unlock the pocket world within? If there is even a way to do so? We can also see a triangle.
I just noticed there's a little bit of a t-shirt I got on here at the moment, and there's a little bit of a...
Yeah. Like, it definitely looks like something would, like, facet into it. Like, it could be like a gem or so some sort of artifact or something.
Mm-hmm.
That
See,
one could
not
say
just random lines. Not just random lines. Look, intentionally drawn.
They're never just random. Oh, it literally says wider portal hole right there.
Oh, Daddy's hammer. Hey, sailor. Rage doesn't seem like the best thing for a tank. When you're the one that meant to assume all the punishment to distract from everyone else while dishing out extreme damage. Yeah. I can't wait to see how I can spec the Revenant into the overwhelming damage dealer instead of the tank role. Oh, yeah. Well, they won't be classical tanks in any sense because none of the classes are classical roles by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think that's where I might find my home in the Revenant, is just being able to just deal as much damage as possible. Swinging a big sword or a hammer, just wiping out 20 different enemies all at the same time, something like that.
This was not forged by mortal or undead.
By a god? Gameplay-wise, I am hoping that the Revenant, in order to maintain his strength in battle, requires him to do a lot of damage. I'm hoping for that, just to keep things agitated.
And then we get the Big Daddy himself.
The Big Daddy, oh my god.
See, this is what I was talking about. It looks like he's literally just sitting on a throne at a pillar.
Oh, yeah. He is sitting on a throne at a pillar. It's just water where.
Yeah.
Because, look, there's other pillars here. We're surrounded by candlelight. I love to see the Revenants with sailors' silver nails.
What is he talking about?
I have no idea. The design, yeah, we have to constantly be dealing damage or be damaged. Yep.
The description makes it sound like this is going to be somewhat the playstyle. And if not the main playstyle, I'm sure we're going to be able to customize it in a way that it becomes so. And I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Oh, yeah. I've a feeling we'll get some interesting abilities with the Revenant. Because, like, if you take a look at the idea of how the vampire works is kind of like running through all of them. Then we heard about the Lich and the magic system. So I feel there will probably be some type of rage system to go with the Revenant, and maybe a hunger system to go with the Ghoul. So like a manageable area. It's from Sailor's World Anvil. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say
That's what they
quite a
were
few
referring
people
to.
mentioned stories from World Anvil here. Wyvern Tamer mentioned his story in World Anvil. Sailor also mentioned.
Well, for anyone that's listening and doesn't know Xan, now's your time to plug.
Yeah, okay. So World Anvil is a platform for managing world building of RPGs, especially tabletop RPGs. But Deadhaus is a part of it, and Deadhaus is a narrative-driven story, as a narrative-driven game, and it has its own page in World Anvil, and people can participate and help build that world by submitting entries, articles, with stories of their own, and you don't need to specifically do a story. You can also just help build the lore in everything involved. So if you go to the Deadhaus Sonata's World Anvil page, you will find the scribe submission section in the World Codex. In there, we got quite a few categories already: characters, conflicts, organizations, locations, items, poems, and these are all the categories that people have submitted things already. But there will be more coming as people create them. And there are quite a few interesting things. Sailor Midgard created a article called Silver Coffee Nail, which is for a tarot card, one of the skills in the game available, and he made it for the Revenant. And he put the link on the chat,
Yep.
and you can follow it there.
Do click on that, because nearly everything I've seen so far, actually, I don't think I've seen anything submitted to the World Anvil that wasn't well worth reading.
Yeah.
From the community. They've all done so good. So, like, I've been writing as well myself. I have not submitted it yet, but I need to up my game. I need to up my game to keep up.
I'm in the same boat. I'm right there, and I'm just working on stuff, and then submit. Hopefully, when things for me have settled down a little bit, I'll be able to submit.
Now, we couldn't finish without having our final class. So you know who we've all ran through. Yeah, who have we missed?
Well, we missed the Banshee.
Plug your ears.
Bingo! Here's our girl right here. Now,
the Banshee is definitely in my top 7.
So we've got here.
Yeah, top 7.
There's the style. I like the idea the way they have this, where it's like this is the way the character looks in physical, and then when they move to like the other form, is it magical?
Ethereal.
Ethereal. Into their they completely change.
I think that's cool. That I think out of all the classes we have, it's the one that drastically changes between states, or at least has been shown to drastically change between states.
Oh yeah. I do like the design where they went. Like, we didn't just go for standard lady in white, you know?
Yeah, and it's all really good.
Like, this is definitely the design, like, just up close there. Here's Kiva. You might recognize her from a certain book. Is she the one that's mentioned in the of Banshees, or is that just a normal average one? Do we know that?
Hard to say.
I thought it was just in general, but I could be wrong in that.
It's very cool how for every class they took many inspirations from real life stories. And I believe you, Mike, will probably be the best person to talk about the Banshee in Irish.
Yes. Okay, so where do we start? This is where Mike needs to make sure he doesn't turn into a Revenant. Yeah, Banshee are female. So I know a lot of people like or dislike the whole gender locking of class. Normally, I wouldn't be in favor of it, but I'm sorry. Banshee means female fairy. Not the floaty little wings fairy, but the other people, the dark ones. The other crowd, as we call them, the other ones in Irish folklore. They would be, in our folklore, the Fae or Anshida. You don't go near them. Like, you wouldn't want to have anything to do with them. Think of them as the other kind, the other world. Very similar to how you would view Deadhaus. They're these beings that you wouldn't want to have anything to do with. It was Disney that ruined fairies and turned them into like cute little sprites with wings that grant wishes. No, that was never part of the folklore. And then of the great clans in Ireland, they would be associated with having a kinship with Nashida. these clans who would have normally been descendants of high kings of some fashion would be marked by the wail of a banshee. So if someone in that family was going to die, it would usually be like the elder of the clan, again, who would have been descendant of the high king. The whole family would know because they would be tormented by the wail of a banshee before it happens. This is very similar to the idea of the Viking mythology, whereby people would have a vision of Odin before they die. He would come personally to claim certain warriors, or the Valkyrie would come to claim particularly great warriors. So if they seen that, they knew death was coming. This is our version culturally. Historically, it's usually a fox crying in a field, but we won't talk about that. It's normally a baby fox, because I don't know how many of you live out in the countryside or maybe had an experience with this and all like that. But if you hear a baby fox crying for its mother out in the field, it does remarkably sound like a person crying, like weeping and wailing. It's very, very similar. We're online. We're on the internet. YouTube it. You can find it easy enough.
So what the fox says.
That was beautiful, dude. That was a beautiful turnaround troll comment. That was my hats off to you. That was good. Yes, I do know what the fox says. But yeah, so in our folklore, yeah, it would be a female fairy, a ban. Now, that would also imply older, not necessarily hag, but older female, ban. Mana being female, but Ban being older woman, usually married or has children, rather than hag or crone in that type of situation. So Banshee is basically the woman fairy, the one that would come crying after the male, the mourner. And yeah, absolutely horrifying in our folklore. If you showed an Irish person this, is this what the Banshee looks like? You'd be like, yep. That's it. No idea what Deadhaus, but yeah, that's what they see. The image is usually of if you mention it to like a lot of the older Irish folk, they would have an image of a woman in a long flowing dress, usually down near a lake or by the wall. It would be near the house, but not like literally right outside. It could be on the roof. It could be like 2 fields over, sitting on the wall, combing their hair, crying and wailing. And yeah, this is exactly where it is. I don't know where we went with the water bit. I think, like as Xan mentioned before, there's influences from a lot of different stuff culturally in Deadhaus. They take from a lot of lore, like the ghouls being partially Wendigo inspired. Not directly, but there's part of that. The same way as Whites, there's partially inspired with like Frankenstein along with other stuff. I do think there's a little bit of elements of La Llorona. Or how would you say that, Xan? Your languages are better than mine.
I'm not sure what you meant there.
It's a Mexican one. My Spanish is horrible, you see. Of a woman who she's like literally another ghost of a woman in white who's all wet and goes and like kidnaps children and drowns them.
Huh. I really wouldn't know. Never heard of something
really?
like that.
There was a new movie out a little while ago, actually, specifically called that. La Llorona. I know how it's spelled. I just can't pronounce it. I speak English, Irish, and drunk Irish. That's about it. What about you, Bishop? Have you ever heard of that legend? Yeah, that's exactly it. Wyvern Tamer. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, usually the things that I know...
the Irish guy heard more about the American traditional stuff than the two people that live in America, in the continent of America, North and South?
It's usually like La Llorona. Llorona, yeah.
Oh, Sailor's got us there, and so is Safi. La Llorona, pronounced Llorona. Yeah, Sailor's got it. La Llorona.
Which literally means crybaby in Spanish.
Yeah, that's what I can see in this, because like our Banshee wouldn't necessarily be wet, but there is that kind of thing to it here. It's kind of got like a wet kind of look. Should look damp, but that could be the crossing over of the veil. Remember in the story with Alaric, like he crosses through this veil that he described as looking like water.
Yes, I might have misinterpreted that at some point, but it seems to me that the world of the undead god, or the god of the undead anyway, is submerged in liquid, like you were underwater. It doesn't need to be water necessarily. People can breathe in it in the world, but that's what it seems like it.
Some type of ethereal, magical, who knows?
Yeah, yeah. And the banshees are usually portrayed in the art we've seen as being wet, coming out of water.
Yeah, as Safi says, her gown seems like it is pouring on her body. Yep, you can see there like that. Although, again, I just love the style in which they painted this, the color, like the fact that this is a 2D picture, but they so accurately represent like the shadow and shading of this being a veil with the legs under it, like stepping forward, as opposed to just being a flappy. This group has done amazing.
Yeah, they're very good.
And the blood on the mouth pretty much says everything you need to know. I love that, though, the fact that it's just along there. So you're trying to think, is that from eating a meal, or has the flesh been stripped there, or what is it?
Oh, yeah, it's kind of unsure. You would think if it was eating, it has to be flesh. Because if it was eating, you'd think there'd be blood everywhere
But do
else.
they need to eat? Do they need to consume?
I don't know. Why not both, Wyvern Taylor? Why not both?
It's not passing over, it's passing through the membrane of reality into another dimension.
Yeah.
Could be. Could be. I honestly don't know. I do think I'll play a Banshee. I'm not greatly interested in them character-wise because I'm not good at playing squishy characters.
Mm-hmm.
Any game I need to play the heavily armored one because I will get flattened very quickly. Maybe it was just a vicious kiss. Mm-hmm. That's a great way to put it, Safi. But I am interested in Kiva and the lore surrounding that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Especially with the Necro Libertas, there's a hint on what is the start of Deadhaus. For anyone that hasn't read it, you need to definitely go check that out. Deadhaussonata.com/lore. That's where you need to be looking and reading. Although I have a weird feeling we might be able to... there might be some more lore coming down the line. Or so I've been led to believe.
I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be very, very interesting.
I wonder why the Banshees are the heralds of the Deadhaus god. Why did he chose them, or if he created them? I don't know.
They seem to be the ones he created, from what I gathered. The rest of them aren't. So vampirism is a curse from the Red Lady, mm-hmm. or a gift, depending on what way you want to look at how it began. Revenants are revenge spirits. Wraiths are tormented spirits. Liches are scholars that have gone beyond. Ghouls are cannibals. Wights are constructs. The Banshee is the only one that's not really from here. Like, technically, the Wight isn't either because it was created from another dimension. But, like, the Banshees literally did not exist here. They have stepped through from another reality, another dimension.
Still, someone had to build the portals where they come from.
That's the interesting bit with this particular dark god, but who knows how many?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we do know that there's six warring, but
it's like there's at least six.
That's six major dark gods, but who knows what we go with in regard to minor gods? The same way as we have minor houses, demigods. We do know there's angel and demons.
Are they all assumed to be dark gods?
Wights are this dimension blended. Banshees are that dimension normal. True.
That was a good point, Bishop. If I were to guess, I'd say that most stuff that happens in the Malorum universe is going to be dark, grim. So I'd say most of them are, if not evil, at least uncaring for people. They would only care for people as far as they could help them further their goals.
Oh yeah, I believe they'd be Lovecraftian in nature, where like humans as creatures, as beings, and as entities are completely inconsequential, even less so that we might view ants.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have their own particular drive and agenda. Although I am really interested in that Seven Sons of Twilight bit.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Where it mentions, because that gets very interesting, because there are ones directly interfering in the affairs of mortals for reasons we don't know.
Probably just wanting influence. That's what all gods are always wanting.
But to what end, Zan? To what end?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a little bit above us.
And to that end, that is going to be us wrapped up for today. We were not be able to be joined by Calypso today, unfortunately, as someone has been very busy. But he will be back again on our next run. So, is there anything else you guys want to say to wrap up before we go?
I don't think so.
I want to say that next week we should be discussing a little bit World Anvil in the official stream. So if you guys are interested, now is a great time to submit your articles, because we might just feature or talk about them on the official stream. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have been doing.
Definitely. And even if you're not submitting something, just head on over to the World Anvil page. You can link to it from deadhausssonata.com. It is definitely worth checking out, especially if you can't get enough of the lore that's in the Necro Libertas. There's so much more over there that is fantastic.
It's a very consolidated space for all the different things, because you can just click on like items if they exist, or characters or something like that, and just kind of go down the list. So,
and it does also have all the lore there too.
Yeah, it's still being set up with the official lore, but the official lore was going to be there, and it's possible that eventually we'll get some even exclusive stuff that shows up there and nowhere else. And if you want to discuss any article in particular, there is a comment section. It's a little bit obscure, but at the end of every page you have a comment section, and you can also like and follow the article and the authors.
Fantastic. And like we said, don't forget to check out deadhaussonata.com. Helps to keep up to date on everything. You can follow myself at Twitter on Twitter at the Faceless Mike. You can check out Deadhaus at Deadhaus Game on Twitter. You can follow Golden Xan on Twitter at Golden_Xan. And also make sure to follow Bishop on Twitter, on Twitch, on absolutely all of his social media. And definitely get the Twitch plug shout out there, Bishop, because you might have some interesting stuff coming over the next few weeks with your new setup.
Oh yeah, that's true. Hopefully I'm starting. My goal is to start streaming again tomorrow, and start getting back into that cycle and schedule.
So don't forget to check him out. And we shall catch you all next week. We will hopefully see you all on Wednesday for the official Deadhaus live stream. And we hope to catch you next week here on Deadhaus Whispers. See ya.
Thank you all for coming.
See you, bye.